This conference will now be recorded.
I told Rosa that we'll give her a pass this week since she's still in Northern California with her grandson's wedding and Sheva Brachas and all that's going on. Good. Okay, Parsha Shoftim, page 1024 in our stone Chumashim, and certainly a very, very apropos Parsha as we begin the month of Elul, where we view Hashem as the shofet, as the judge of the world, and the one who's judging us, but not. It's interesting. I'm doing the OU Tehillim call tomorrow, so I'm going to mention the idea that we say Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu. Right? That's the tefillah that we add in during this month, and we're focused on Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, our Father, our King. But I think there's an overemphasis on the Malkeinu, on the King aspect. We also have to remember the Avinu aspect, the loving parent, the loving father. And granted, on Rosh Hashanah, we do emphasize Hamelech, Hamelech, Hamelech HaKadosh. We'll start referring to God as the Melech, as the King, but it needs to be with that recognition that it's preceded by the Avinu, by the parent, by the loving parent, by the father. And we view the Malkeinu aspect, meaning the challenges in life and the hardships in life and the things that don't go the way we always hope that they would go. When we view that through that prism of Avinu, of our Father, then already we could accept it and deal with it in a much more positive, healthy manner. But let's look at the wording over here, and it seems to be very strange. Shoftim, judges, shotrim, officers, okay? And you need to have the judges, and Rashi explains you also need to have those who are going to enforce the laws. Titain lecha, you shall appoint b'chol sha'arecha, in all of your gates, asher Hashem Elokecha noten lecha, that Hashem your God is giving to you for your tribes, v'shaftu et ha'am mishpat tzedek, and they must judge the nation with mishpat tzedek, with righteous judgment. So titain lecha is in the singular. Titain lecha, you shall appoint, and then v'shaftu et ha'am, and they will judge the nation. So we're going from titain lecha, right? It would seem more logical to say officers and judges and officers, titnu lachem, you, in the plural, you all, you, the Jewish people, you must appoint in all of your gates, and they will judge the nation properly. So why is it in the singular? And there are a number of approaches on that. One interesting approach is, who are the ones who appoint the Shoftim and the Shotrim? It's those in power. It's the people who are the community leaders. It's those who are in power. They are the ones who appoint. Now, as long as they will appoint lecha, as long as they will appoint judges who will be able to, who they will accept their rule, the rulings of these judges over themselves. Right? I think it was Nixon famously said that, right, I can't break the law, I'm the president. I am the law. Whatever I do has got to be lawful because I'm the president, right? That didn't go over all that well, right? But very often, those who are in power feel that they are above the law, and the laws don't necessarily apply to them, and therefore titain, you have to appoint them lecha, over you. And then, if you're going to give them that authority, that they're not going to have to bow to the powerful or to the wealthy, then v'shaftu et ha'am mishpat tzedek. Then they will be able to judge the nation in a righteous way. I forget who it was. There's a famous story of a young Rav who was appointed as the rabbi of this large city. And on his first day there's a knock on the door. Opens the door. There's a woman there, a widow. And she has a claim against the most powerful man in the city. So he hears that, and he sends his attendant to go summon this wealthy person so they could discuss this. And the attendant said, I don't know if that's what you want to do. Maybe it's good you do this before you unpack your bags, because maybe there's no point in unpacking your bags. Right? Once you summon this person, it's not right. Your tenure here is not going to work. He said, go summon him. Person goes, he comes back. He said, I was about to knock on the door. I couldn't do it. I can't summon him. He said, go back and summon him. And finally, the attendant goes and summons him. And this person walks into the house along with other of the town strongmen, leaders, and says to him, congratulations. Now we know that you're the right person for the job. And it was all a setup that they sent this widow to make the claim, to see, will he buckle or will he do what he needs to do as the Rav of that city, that not titain lecha b'chol sha'arecha. You have to appoint them for you. And then v'shavtu et ha'am. If they are appointed and they know and they don't bow to the powerful, but they're going to be able to judge, then you know v'shavtu et ha'am. Then the whole nation will be judged in a mishpat tzedek, in a proper way. And as I mentioned, Janet, you heard this last night in my introduction to that meeting that we had with the town hall meeting. But another way that it's looked, the Shla Kodesh says, Shoftim v'shotrim titain lecha. It's interesting. Pirkei Avos, Ethics of the Fathers, has a lot of Mishnayot which teach about how a judge should act. And someone could look at it and say, all right, how many of us are judges? And the answer is, we all are judges. We're all judging one another. We're all judging God. We're all judging ourselves. We're all constantly judging all the things that go on around us. He said this, she said that, didn't say this, acted like this, constantly scrutinizing all that's going on around us. And here too, Shoftim v'shotrim titain lecha. We have to appoint our judges and our officers. Who do we appoint? B'chol sha'arecha, over all of our gates. And the Shla says we've got 7 gates. Our 2 eyes, our 2 ears, our 2 nostrils, and our mouth. These are sha'arecha. These are our gates. And we need to be judging. What do I say? What don't I say? What do I listen to? What don't I listen to? What do I look at? What do I not look at? Shoftim, right? These are all the portals that come into our minds And certain things can sit with us for decades and decades. And therefore we need to be Shoftim, the judges, and Shotrim. We also need to be the enforcers, because sometimes I might judge, I really shouldn't say that, but I couldn't help myself. Well, I could have helped myself. I chose not to help myself. So we need to be the Shoftim and the Shotrim over our own gates to see what's passing in, what is passing, what is coming out, right? And that is really how we determine who and what we are. Right? It goes on to say, Lo tatem mishpat, do not judge, do not tilt. How they say the English, pervert good judgment. Lo takir panim, don't literally recognize faces, meaning don't give certain respect to one person over another person. Lo tikach shochad, do not take bribery. Ki shochad yaver, bribery will blind the eyes of those who are wise, visalef, and will make crooked divrei tzadikim. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Righteousness, righteousness, you shall pursue. Laman tichyeh v'arashta et haaretz, in order that you will live and inherit the land that Hashem your God has given to you. And the tzedek, tzedek tirdof, that double term of righteousness, righteousness shall you pursue. Some explain that to mean, right, that very often will feel that the ends justifies the means, right? And if it's tzedek, if it's the right thing, no matter how we get there, that is okay, that's acceptable. And here it's telling us tzedek, tzedek tirdof. There needs to be righteousness in the righteousness that you pursue, meaning that the way you get there also needs to be proper. And the end does not justify the means. The means themselves need to be justified. Now, this idea of controlling ourselves, so that is something that the more powerful a person might be, so the more challenging it can become. So if we go to 1028, we have the Parsha of appointing a king. Let's look at 1028. That's Perek Yud Zayin, Pasuk Yud Dalet, chapter 17, verse 14. Ki tavo el haaretz, when you come to the land that Hashem your God has given to you, v'yirishta, you will inherit it, and you will settle there. V'amarta, and you will say, Asima alai melech, I will appoint upon myself a king. Kechol hagoyim, like all the nations, asher sevivotai, that are around me. Som tasim alecha melech, appoint, you shall appoint upon yourself a king. Asher yivchar Hashem elokecha bo, the one whom that God, Hashem your God, will choose. Mikerev achecha, from amongst your brethren. Tasim alecha melech, you will appoint this king. Lo tuchal latet alecha ish nachri asher lo achichahu. You cannot appoint upon yourself an ish nachri, a foreign man, a non-Jewish person, in other words, asher lo achichahu, right, who is not your brother. Now, we know later on in history, we did ask for a king. Right? We approached Shmuel Hanavi, Shmuel Samuel the prophet, and asked for a king, and we were castigated for that. Right? And Hashem says to Shmuel, don't feel bad. It's not you they're rejecting, it's me they're rejecting. But here the pasuk says, Som tasim alecha melech. you should appoint a king over here. Oh, let's see what he says over here. Is it the Ramban? See it. Okay. So it's interesting. The same way that the parsha began with Shoftim v'Shotrim Titain Lecha, you have to appoint for yourself these officers, these judge and officers. So too, the king that we should want is Asima Allah, so Tasim Alecha Melech. You have to be willing to appoint this king over you, meaning to recognize, it's interesting. We grew up in America and democracy, right? Now, is democracy really the best form of government, right? Now, it's certainly not the most efficient, right? In our world, right, it's the best choice. At least we think it's the best choice that could be made. But when you have a true leader, a true king, so then it is a lot more efficient, a lot more effective, as long as that person is acting properly. That person really is what do we call this? A public servant, right? A public servant, right? In our world today, we can't trust a an a totalitarian leader to be the public servant. I remember so vividly. We were living in Israel at the time. This is the late 1980s, and this is when the Soviet Union was starting to unravel, and all of the satellite communist countries. One of the satellites of the Soviet Union was Romania, and that was ruled by Ceausescu, who was the leader, the communist leader of Romania. And there was an interview that we listened on Voice of America in Israel, whatever that was, that they were interviewing him, that he seemed to be grooming his son to become the next leader. So they asked him, is that true that your son is being groomed to be the next leader? And his answer was hysterical. His answer was, my son is a comrade, like all other comrades of our great country. And any comrade, right, who will be worthy, can step forward to lead this. We're all equal, we're all comrades over here. Now, when he was overthrown a few weeks or months after that, they found that the fixtures in his bathroom were all golden fixtures, right? That's how that comrade was living, when most of the other comrades were not exactly living in that way, right? But it is the most effective manner when you have the right person doing it. And this has been challenging even for us, right? And until messianic times, I don't think we'll be able to rely on anyone being the right person. But there are, and even King David and Shlomo, right, who were of the most righteous. Also, there were some pitfalls of power that came along the way. But the key is Tasim Alecha Melech, right? That we need to be willing to accept him upon ourselves as a guide, as a leader, but then he also must have these controls. What does it say in 16? Lo yarbe lo susim. He should not have too many horses, lest he'll bring back the people to Egypt in order to increase those horses. That's where the horses would come from. And Hashem said, do not go back there. 17, lo yarbe lo nashim. He should not have too many wives, lest they will cause his heart to turn. And kesef and zav, silver and gold. Lo yarbe lo mod. He should not have too much of that. Vayan will be keshivto al kisei mamlachto, when he will sit on the throne of his kingdom, the Katav Loet Mishnah Torah Hazot. The way Rashi learns, he needs to have two Sefer Torahs. He needs to write this. I'll say milafnei hakon aviyim vayta imo the karabo kol yemei chayav. He needs to have two Sifrei Torah that he needs to write. One of them stays in the palace. The other one he carries with him all the days of his life. Rashi says one is in the Beit Genazav, one is in the storehouse. The other that goes in and out, nichneset v'yotzeit imo. Right, the other one is constantly going in and out with him. Why? Leman yilmad liyirat Hashem elokav. So he will learn to fear Hashem as God, to keep all the words of this Torah and the chukim ha'ele la'asotam, livilti, to do them, lest rumavavo, his heart become lifted up over his brothers, right? And say that, hey, I'm above all of this. Livilti, to make sure he will not deviate from the mitzvah to the right or to the left, in order that he'll have a long reign, he and his children, amongst Israel. So the king has to carry the Sefer Torah with him at all times. He's the one who has to remember and has to stay focused that with all of his power, he is serving as God's agent to lead the people, but he is under that of Hashem. Let's take a look at the paragraph here on page 1028, 14 to 20, a king in Israel. Israel as a nation had three commandments, right, underline here. Once it was established in its land, to request a king, eliminate the offspring of Amalek, and build a temple. Thus, it was not only permitted but commanded that at some future point the nation should request a king. Moreover, the prophecy of Messianic times, which represent Israel at its highest level, revolve around a king from the Davidic dynasty, a descendant of David. Two of the saddest episodes of Israel arriving in its land, the graven image of Micah and the atrocity involved in the concubine of Givon, are described as having been possible only because there was no king in Israel. Had there been the leadership and discipline of a righteous king, he would have never permitted such outrages to take place. Clearly, therefore, kingship is a desirable condition. Nevertheless, when the people asked the prophet Shmuel to give them a king so they could be like all surrounding nations, he responded with disappointment and anger. They should have asked for a king who would lead them, inspire them, and set an example of selfless and wholehearted service of God. But instead, they wanted a king merely to imitate their neighbors. Was it God's goal for Israel to be no different than other nations, which aspires for glory, wealth, and conquest? Because the desire of the people was wrong, their first king, the righteous Shaul, cannot keep his throne permanently. And our passage, the Torah prophetically foreshadows the improper motive. Okay, because here the Torah introduces the commandment to ask for a king, the very words that were said to Shmuel, like the other nations. Okay. Now, an interesting point, though, is he said because we weren't asking correctly, that's why Shaul kingdom did not last. Okay? Therefore, how they put it? Cannot keep his throne permanently. Now, could Shaul really have ever been able to keep his throne permanently? Where does our king need to come from? Good morning.
Good morning.
No problem. Where does our king need to come from? Which tribe? Judah, from Yehuda. Right? David is from Yehuda. And Judah was told that from him the throne will be. Right? So Shaul was from Binyamin. He was never meant to be forever. However, what could have been was he could have been forever over a small part, and Judah would have been the king over the whole area. Okay, but the key is that the king needs to recognize that Hashem is over him. An interesting idea that's brought about the two Sefer Torahs, right? So one needs to be carried with him, one needs to be kept in the storehouse. So there's an interesting question that's brought up. Whenever the Talmud has a question that is unresolved, so the Gemara has a statement that's made. The statement is teku, which means Elijah the prophet will come and he will resolve it for us. When Elijah comes, it'll be resolved. Actually, the famous Elijah's cup, the kos shel Eliyahu, the extra cup that we fill on the Pesach table. So we get all mystical, and it's Elijah the prophet, and it's the coming of the Elijah. We open the door for him. We sing Eliyahu Hanavi. The Vilna Gaon, though, says, in addition to all that, let's say, that there's a very technical reason why we fill that cup and we call it Elijah's cup. And it's not what we think. Right? The Gemara is unsure how many cups of wine should there be at the Seder. We all know 4 cups of wine, 4 cups of wine. But there's an opinion that says there should be a 5th cup of wine at the Seder. Why? Because we have the 4 cups corresponding to the 4 terms of redemption, but there's actually another 5th term. It's not clear. That's Veheveti, I'll bring you to the land of Israel. Is that a 5th term of redemption or not? The Gemara is unsure. The Gemara says teku. When will we know? When Elijah the prophet comes. So what do? We fill the 5th kos, the 5th cup, but we don't drink it. And we call it the kos of Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu Hanavi. When he comes, we'll know. Do we need to pour it? Do we need to drink it? What are we supposed to do? So the question is asked, why do we refer all of these questions to Elijah the prophet? Right? Who would have been a better person to refer it to? Who was the bringer of Torah to us? Moshe. So why don't we say, in the Messianic times, right? Moshe's going to come back. Everyone's going to come back. Moshe will resolve it for us. Why Eliyahu Hanavi? Why Elijah the prophet? So an explanation that's given is that our tradition is Elijah never died, right? The Navi tells us that he went up to the heavens, and he comes back and he visits us often. He visits us at every Brit Milah, every circumcision, he's there. Why is he there? Because he said to God, the people have spurned, have given up the Brit, the covenant. So Hashem says, oh yeah? They've given up the Brit, they've given up the covenant? I want you to attend every Brit Milah so you see that they haven't given up the covenant. They're keeping the covenant. Here we are thousands of years later, keeping the covenant. So Eliyahu Hanavi has been involved in the world, in our world. He understands us. He knows us. He knows our struggles. He knows what we have to contend with. And therefore, Eliyahu Hanavi is the one who will be able to answer all of these unresolved queries, questions that we have. Because the Torah is the pure Torah, but it needs to be fitting for each generation. Right? That's called the 5th chelik of Shulchan Aruch. The 5th portion of the Code of Jewish Law there are 4 parts to it. The 5th one is how is it meant to be applied in every generation? So some say the same idea over here also, that the king needs to carry one Sefer Torah and needs to keep one, the Beit Gnazav, in the storehouse, in the treasure house. That is the pure Torah, and that always have to work off of that. He needs to carry it with him also on his arm, meaning, how does it apply? For this person, what's the correct guidance? For that person, what's the correct guidance? For this community, for that group, for this situation, how to apply it. It needs to be carried with him. Okay, there's a lot in our Parsha, but let's jump up. Yes, you do.
Is it? I heard a sermon once suggesting that if the Messiah comes back, it's most likely to be Elijah himself because he never died, but also because people say Moshe and Chabad has its own view. But I'm not going to go there. But the point is that between Moshe and Elijah, the two greatest, whatever, leaders, prophets, um, Elijah never died. He's present in every year and every era. So he knows that we have cell phones. He knows that we have modern things. He would not be shocked to come back. He would understand how to communicate with modern people. Yeah. Whereas Moses died, and Moses would be like,
along those lines. Yes.
Is that a
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
So he would be, when I was a little girl, we learned that he would come back as the Messiah. Is that still legitimate?
No, he's not the Mashiach.
Okay. So
but he will herald the arrival of the Mashiach. Right? He will announce the coming of, right?
How will that happen? What would that look like? No, don't ask us.
Not a stupid question at all, but that's a question that everyone has. And the Rambam himself says we have all these different descriptions of the Messianic times. Exactly how will it look, and how will all of those descriptions actually all fit together when he comes? That's when it will all. That's when it will all become clear. Okay. Now there is. Take a look on page 1034, chapter Yutet. Ki achriun, Hashem will remove the nations from the land, and you will settle in the lands. Shalosh pasuk bet shalosh arim tavdilach. You have to set aside 3 cities in your land that God's giving you to inherit, and prepare the roads to those 3 cities. Right? V'haya lanushama kol rotseach. Right? That if a person killed, they can run to these cities of refuge, you call them, Ari Miklat. Right? Now, who can run there? If someone strikes his fellow without knowledge, he didn't hate him yesterday, the day before. Another situation, he'll come to the forest. Lachtov etim, he's there chopping wood. The nidche yado begarzen lichrot ha'etz, and then he sends forth his hand, swings the axe to cut the tree. The nashal habarzel min ha'etz. Well, and Gemara says there are 2 ways of understanding this. Either the nashal habarzel min ha'etz, either the metal part of the axe will fly off the handle and fly off and find someone, hit someone, and kill that person, inadvertent. Or another way that it's learned by what the other opinion in the Mishnah there is the nashal habarzel min ha'etz. He hits the barzel, hits the wood, and it causes some wood to fly off, and that went and killed someone. But all of these are cases of manslaughter, meaning not murder. Did not mean to kill the person, but there is a certain degree of culpability in that you should have been more careful, right? If it's that the head of the axe flew off the handle, well, you should have checked it better before you went out there to do your wood chopping. And if it's that the chip flew off, well, you should have looked around more carefully before you started chopping that tree. So that in those situations, the person will run to one of these cities, v'chai, and there he will stay alive. Why is this necessary? Pen yirdof goel adam acharei harotzeach, lest the Redeemer of the blood will chase after this murderer. Ki echam levavo, his heart will be hot. V'hisigo, and he'll catch him. Kiyar behaderach, because it'll be a long road until he gets to the city of refuge. V'iko nafesh, and he'll kill him. V'lo mishpan mavet. But this person did not deserve death. The person who killed did not deserve death. Kilo sonelo holo mitmol shulshon. He did not hate him from before. This was not a premeditated murder. It was not murder at all. This was manslaughter, as it's called. Al Kain, therefore, Anochi mitzavcha lemor, I'm commanding you to say, Shalosh Arim Tavdil Lach. These three cities must be separated for you. And this person, this Rotseach, the person who killed, is safe as long as he remains within the confines of that city. But if he wanders out of that city, then the Goel Hadam, the avenger of the blood, the redeemer of the blood, is either allowed to or has a mitzvah to kill him. Wow. Now that's pretty intense. And something that that bothered me about this is, this whole concept of a Goel Hadam, right? That speaks of like avenging the blood. And when a person dies, no matter how that person died, the nechama, the comfort that we're supposed to feel, and the approach that we're supposed to have is, it was this person's time. Why did it come about through whatever means through which it came about? Hanistarot Lashem Elokeinu. That's something that God knows. And we don't know, we can't know why, but this was the person's time. That's the nechama that we try to give ourselves. And if a person wants to hear, then that's something that we can share. Otherwise, we don't share. We just comfort by our presence. It's not, Shiva calls, I always say, is not a time to pontificate about God and this world. It's a time to just go there and be quiet and just share the grief that the person is feeling. But that is our approach. So how does a Goel Hadam, this avenger or the redeemer of the blood, how does that fit into this Jewish Torah view on life and death happening at its right time? So when my son was living in Michigan, and I go visit him there, I sit daven at a minyan. There's a kollel there, and there's the Rosh Kollel Rav Irons is a very, very brilliant, very thoughtful person. So he was a person that when I have these type of questions, I would like to sit down with after davening, and have a chance to discuss, to try to learn and understand. See, he gave me a very nice approach, and then this past year I saw another approach. What he said is as follows. Well, it's clear from the Gemara, if it's completely fluke accident, then he doesn't have to go to the Ir Miklat, to the city of refuge. And he's not fair game. He's not fair game for the relative who is the Goel Hadam, the avenger of the dam, of the blood. He's not fair game. So there was a certain degree of culpability, of responsibility that this person bears. Now, when a person actually murdered someone, so the Torah holds for that there is capital punishment, right? Of course, we know that as the Mishnah there says in Makos, a Beit Din that killed once in 7 years considered to be a murderous Beit Din, because they would find reason to acquit, always want to err on the side of acquittal, not on the side of conviction. So a Beit Din that would kill once in 7 years was called murderous. Another opinion says once in 70 years was considered to be murderous. But for murder, there is capital punishment, and the Beit Din has an executioner. They appoint someone who will actually do who will give that capital punishment. So over here, this person has a pending din, a pending judgment of capital punishment. If he is respectful of the parameters that he needs to be within, then it is pending, and upon the death of the Kohen Gadol, he's released, finished. He can then leave the Ir Miklat, the city of refuge. But it's pending, and if he steps out of bounds, literally, so then the Beit Din now has someone who's appointed to give the capital punishment that the person does deserve if he's not staying within those confines.
Why does he deserve capital punishment?
He deserves a pending cap because he took someone's life based on his not being careful enough. We're not talking about a completely fluke accident. We're talking about something that there's a certain degree of responsibility because he could have been more careful. Therefore, complete fluke accident, patur, no responsibility. If there is premeditated murder, so then capital punishment. That's mazid, that's deliberate, that's onus, fluke accident. In the middle, we have the shogeg category, where he could have been more careful. He's not a murderer, but he should have checked that axe before he swung it. Right?
So if he did check the axe?
Then he should have checked it better because he didn't check it effectively.
So, Rabbi, if it's the case of the wood chips, he walks around, he checks a very big perimeter, he starts chopping and chopping. Then someone could be wandering in during that chopping period. Is he to stop every 5 minutes and recheck and recheck and recheck?
If a person is close enough that a flying wood chip is going to kill him, then yeah, I would say yes, he does need to check and recheck, right? To keep looking around. Yeah.
I mean, but you would have to stop your chopping and then go through that perimeter again and again and again and again.
I don't know, go through perimeter. I think I could do a quick glance and then again. Yeah. Now, look, keeping in mind that if a person's life was taken through my actions, even if it was a complete fluke, I need to think, why would Hashem have me as the agent for this person's life to be taken? Right? So there's always a certain degree of we say every shogeg, if something happens accidentally, then I need to do some introspection as to why did it happen through me, right? Classic, oh, I forgot I turned on the light in the bathroom. Oh, I forgot I turned off the light on Shabbos, right? So a person needs to think, well, maybe Shabbos needs to be more on my mind so that I won't make such mistakes. But coming back over here, it's interesting. He's called the Goel Hadam, the redeemer of the dam, of the blood. Meaning, blood was spilled. And therefore, there was this, as a result of that, there is this desecration of the value of life. You know, there are all these studies about these. I just read an article that ADL put out something that there are certain websites or apps, right, which present graphic material, murder, right, the most graphic of the worst things, and the, those people who become the school shooters or this, that, right, predominantly have been people who have been drawn to that and watching that and watching that and watching that. And that causes this desensitizing of the value of life. So when blood has been spilled, there is this sense of this, the value of life has been diminished. So there needs to be a redemption of that. How is that redeemed? So we're not talking about avenging the blood of this person who was killed. No, we're talking about being Goel Hadam, redeeming the value of Dam, of blood. So when there is a capital punishment, so that balances it out. Oh, this person killed, well now, person can no longer walk this earth because that is the value of an innocent life that was taken. So that is restorative, so to speak, of the balance. And if it was through not premeditated murder, but it was through this carelessness, so then the fact that I need, or the person now needs to stay in this city and can't leave this city, that is restoring the balance. That is Goel Hadam, that is redeeming the blood, because there's serious repercussions. If, even though it was b'shogeg, if a life was lost through you, there are that serious repercussions. And if a person is then going to wander out, then that is diminishing the value of the blood that was spilled. It's not a big deal. Life goes on, right? And I'm back at work the next morning, and I'm back home, and life goes on. No, life can't just go on. So it's not that we are avenging the life of this person that was taken. Yes, that person's time had come. Otherwise, it would not have happened. And we'll see that again in a moment. But there is this desecration of the value of dam, of blood, of life, and that is what needs to be restored. Right? And that comes in interestingly, because if you turn the page, there it says, turn the page, turn 2 pages to 1038. There we have the din of witnesses who give false testimony, who claim so-and-so is deserving of a death penalty, but they were not there to witness what they claim to have witnessed. And other witnesses come and say, you were not even there. So there the din is, the very top on page 1038, pasuk 19, and chapter 19, 1919. Vasitim lo kasher zamam, do to them that which they intended to do to their brother. And whatever din, whatever verdict they attempted or they had placed on this person based on their testimony, if it wasn't yet carried out, it will go to them. But the Gemara learns out a very, very paradoxical, counterintuitive law. Kasher zaman below kasher asa. Let's say they intended, they conspired to give the guy a death penalty, and the Beit Din ruled the death penalty. And then they're found to be zomimim, they're found to be these false witnesses. before the death penalty was carried out, then they will be put to death. But if the Beit Din carried out the death penalty based on their false testimony, or testimony might be true, but they did not witness it, there they will not be put to death. And it seems to be paradoxical. If the guys who tried to get the guy killed will be put to death, those who succeeded in getting a guy killed, of course, should be put to death. And there are different explanations that are given to this din that the Gemara extracts for this din of the Torah, this law of the Torah. And the way the Ramban explains it is as follows. God is involved in the Beit Din. When a Beit Din issues a ruling, there is divinity over there. If they tried to get a guy killed and he did not, and Beit did not put him to death, what does that mean? That means that he was not meant to die. They tried to kill an innocent person, and therefore they will get that kasher zamam. What they conspired will go back onto them. But if the Beit Din, with God in assembly, put this person to death, then it means that this person was meant to be put to death. They will be responsible for their having conspired to give testimony that they didn't actually witness, and they will be held responsible for that, but not for trying to kill an innocent person. Because if it happens, no matter how it happens, if it happens certainly through a Beit Din, or no matter how it happens, it means it was that person's time. And therefore, in that case, they will not get, they'll get kasher zamam, they'll get that which they conspired, velo kasher asa, not that which they successfully did. And that is our view, that every person has the amount of time they're supposed to have, and that's how long we live, and how one reaches their ultimate end. That is God's plan for whatever reason. That is God's cheshbon, which ultimately we might understand, but in this world we don't understand. But over here, the Goel Hadam is not to avenge the innocent blood it's not the blood of that person, but it's to Goel, to redeem the value of Dam, the value of life that has been diminished when there is this wanton killing or this non-careful death that resulted. Okay, my friends, we'll call it over here. Right? I will not be here next Tuesday morning, so we will pick up these guys not with Kitaytze, but with Kitavo in 2 weeks.
Rabbi?
Yes, Janet.
So in the case of the witnesses who facilitated a Beit Din death that actually happened, even though they testified falsely, if it becomes known, what is the halacha because thou shalt not bear false witness? That's one of the more prominent of the 613. What is the halacha
so in a practical sense, they will no longer be accepted as witnesses. In any other cases, we have a no-fly in the no-fly list. They have the no testify list. Okay, and they've transgressed a lav. Right? Some lavs there is lashes. For this one, there's not lashes. Right? The same way that a person eats an In-N-Out burger, so they've transgressed a lav. Right? And that's between them and God. Right? In the absence of a Beit Din that enforces. Right? So again, we're not saying that they're kosher, that they're fine. Right? They've done a terrible thing, but the kasher zamam does not apply to them.
So Is there a codification of the non-death penalty liabilities that occur halachically, that, if it's this, then this? Like you're
Yeah,
saying,
yeah. There for
so
certain
how
things
do
there's
you,
capital punishment. For certain things there's makos, lashes. For certain things there's kares.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah, but is there like a list that's
yeah, yeah.
easily codified?
There's Masechet Krisus, which lists the 36 things which one gets kares. Then and there's the Masechet Makas, right, which deals with when lashes are given. If there's a lav for which there is no death penalty or kares, then the default is lashes, unless it is lav shenitik laseh, if it's connected to an aseh, if there's a don't do this, if you do this, then do that. Don't steal, if you steal, return it. So then there are no lashes for the stealing. Right, the obligation is to return it. There's a lav she'ein bo maseh, a lav that one transgresses in a passive manner, not through an action, and speech would go into that category, right? So in those cases, there is no lashes. Yeah, but there are tractates that deal with all of these, right? When it applies, when it does not apply.
Interesting. So you could go and find what, for a given avera or chatat, what would be the outcome or the consequence.
Right, when there's a beit din. Right, nowadays we don't have a beit din. Nowadays it's just teshuva, teshuva, teshuva. That's what we need to do.
All right, thank you.
When we do things well. Yeah. Okay, everybody. Have a good day, a good rest of the week.